Hey, it's Connor Steele and Chris here.
Hello.
We're going to show you the 40% demo we have for our game because we don't know if you have a Unreal Engine installed or if you'll be able to play it or not. So we just want to make sure that you can see what we have. We sent you the GitHub link and you can download the code there and check everything out. But we'll walk you through just some of our stuff. So our player spawns right outside his house here. You can walk inside and check it out. And you can walk over to your neighbor's house and walk in, and you can talk to the neighbor. And this is actually our skill merchant. So you can buy skills right now, but it shows you the cost and the player XP right here, and we don't have enough XP right now to purchase these skills. We have a skill bar now that we've set up, and if you hover over it, it tells you what things do and the cost and damage of it. This system needs to get upgraded a little bit, but it's good enough for what we got right now.
Yeah, so the way like buying upgrades in our game works, if it wasn't clear, is experience is basically our like one catch-all currency that you use to buy everything. It works sort of like how it does in Dark Souls, where if you get 100 experience, you buy a fireball, you'll like you don't keep that 100 experience; it subtracts like a currency would.
And we really took what you were telling us for feedback in the last time we showed you the game, where we had a lot of technical stuff that we've done, but we didn't really have a story. So we went and sat down and really just hashed out a story that we thought would be fitting not only for our game, but also for the research that we're doing. So the story is that the player, the protagonist, is he's an interdimensional traveler, and he maintains balance in the universe. And he is in a hub world, kind of like Mario 64, and there's going to be a bunch of dungeons that are like the paintings in Mario 64, and each dungeon will give you kind of a preview of what kind of enemies you can expect inside or how hard the dungeon is. And the people that you talk to here that live on your little hub planet between dimensions are your friends, and they're also people that do either engineering or research for you. So we have art for the characters. We just need to come up with some dialogue and put it into the game to get a nice story actually that the players can interact with in the game, and not just something that we present to them and tell them that's how this is the world is working. But the reason we went with this approach with the story is because it fits in with the game that we have, and for our research we needed a lot of different scenarios to be able to present to players for them to be able to tweak. So we thought it'd be nice to have just any kind of dimension, so it can be any setting. We're not restricted to just one kind of setting, and or one kind of enemy, and
Yeah, it makes the development of our game really modular, where we can just kind of add whatever we want, like without too many issues when we need to, depending on like where our research takes us.
yeah. So this is the entrance to our first level of our battle dungeon. We don't have one thing that we want to add here, but we want to have it pop up kind of like right here where I'm moving the cursor right now. It'll tell you this is a dungeon, this is how many enemies you can expect in it, and this is how hard this dungeon is. So that way the player knows before they even enter what kind of difficulty they can expect walking into this dungeon. Some dungeons might have debuffs, like player has 50% health. But in our paper we've described that we want there to be a very controllable difficulty system. So this is going to be the merchant that will sell you weapons, items, and skills, and then we intend to implement another kind of merchant that's like a scientist maybe, that will let you control difficulty options for the dungeons. So setting like the amount of enemies that are in the dungeons, how much damage the enemies can do, and that all ties into the gameplay and story in a nice way. So let's get into the first battle area here. So we have a nice lit sky here with stars in the background, and the lighting of the world is set to reflect that, and we have some enemies out in the battlefield. So if we go ahead and hover on our skill bar, we have this dark whirl. This is an attack, so I'm going to click this, and we get this orb on the screen. The orb on the screen is a collider. It's a mesh scaled to look the size of the collider that the dark whirl is. So when you click, an attack gets spawned in, and the collision of the attack is exactly where the red, or rather pink or purple bubble is. Then I'm moving around the screen. Excuse me. If I click cancel attack, it'll go away. We wanted a very visual way to convey to the player what they're doing. So let's go kill some enemies over here. The debug's getting printed out right up here. just so we know what's going on with the game. I'm going to spawn some attacks on the enemy, and that'll kill the enemy, and it'll give us 10 experience points for killing them. So let me just go ahead and take out these enemies. I'll also sometimes we got bugs, so let's just reload here real fast and jump in again. Let me demonstrate the enemy. This is a little bug that we have not run into previously. It's kind of happening right now as we're playtesting. Do you think the nav mesh got deleted or something?
Maybe. Just click on the landscape and press P. Is there any nav mesh?
I don't think so.
Interesting.
Is it this?
No. Just type in nav. Maybe it is that one actually.
Nav mesh balance volume.
Yeah. Or no, there is one in there.
But it's not showing up at all.
It's just right there.
It's tiny right now. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, this is the problem. Running into a little issue on the fly here. I think I moved all the geometry in the world up. There we go.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, I moved all the geometry up, so it was my bad.
Oh, no, you're good.
No, it's all good. At least... So, Professor Hongs, if you're watching this and just saw our thing here, this is a nav mesh, and it controls...
where the enemies can move.
Yeah.
So it basically will, like, find... So all the spots that aren't, like, colored in green right now are spots that it, like, the enemy AI will know it can't move, so it'll, like, try to find ways around that to get to where it needs to go.
So if we jump back in here now, and I'll demonstrate the enemy. I probably didn't move close enough to the enemy there, realistically. They have got pretty small collision.
Should we stop?
Huh?
Should we stop the video?
Yeah, probably. Hey, it's Connor and Chris again. We figured out our bug. It was due to some kind of Unreal bug that we're gonna call it. Is all we had to do was select all the geometry in our world and shift it back down. It was just higher up before because I moved it up to try to make things look better, but moving it back down fixed everything. So it was just a problem with Unreal, but there was a really nice way to debug it. If we hit play here, we are actually able to... This slime right here was the one we were trying to diagnose, and over here on the blueprint side, you can actually pick that specific slime, and it'll show you what's firing for that enemy. So we were able to tell that the problem wasn't in the slime because it was moving, and that it was just an Unreal bug. So we had to undo some stuff. But back to the demo we have. So if we kill this slime, we can go ahead and fight the other ones, and we can get a bunch of enemies, and they'll fight us in the order, and we can spawn attacks on them to kill them. But right now we just need a bunch of XP, and there's not enough slimes out here, so we have a little bug right now that we haven't fixed because it's so nice for testing our game. If you click on enemies and spam attacks on them when they're dead, you'll get XP still. So we'll just use that, and we'll bring that back to the store now. Go back to town and go to the merchant. You press T to talk to the merchant, and you can buy the fireball now, and you can buy the lightning bolt because we got enough XP. Close that, and they'll pop up down here. We don't have descriptions for these skills yet, but they'll be added to the game. And then moving back over here, we can use these new abilities on the enemies, and the you can see that the hitbox changes to reflect the size of the attack that you're about to use and the hitbox that it'll have. So this lightning one's very small, but it does a devastating amount of damage when it hits the enemy. So let me just go back to town here to explain things. Our philosophy for doing our research was that we would have skill trees to let the players pick any kind of skill that they wanted to pick, and we're gonna add a indicator to every kind of skill that lets the player know how powerful we think this skill is relative to the other skills. So that way the player knows this skill tree is really strong. Maybe I want a more balanced experience of the game, so I'll pick a different skill tree. And we'll record that feedback in the playtesting to see what the player thinks is a balanced skill tree and what's too powerful, what's too weak, and that way we find how much damage or what kind of skills the player thinks is the most appropriate, what's the most fun for their actual experience.
Yeah. So like we're gonna have two different like difficulty options implemented into our game. We're gonna have the preset easy, medium, and hard ones, and then our super customizable version. And we like for our customizable one, we're thinking that we'll like purposely not put a ton of time into balancing the skill trees, but like describe like what we think is like extremely powerful and what's not as powerful, and see like if the player will like want to balance the game themselves and like how they react to that kind of choice in the game.
Yeah, so we do need to implement some more areas of according to our research, but what we have right now is going to we're going to start playtesting it right away. We already have done some playtests, but it's given us a really good base to add the story features to the game. That's what we took some time doing, and making sure that what we have makes sense with our story, and our story actually makes sense with our research that we're trying to get for the paper too. We just need, next time we'll have the scientist probably to let players control the kinds of difficulties that they can expect going into the dungeon. So we hope you enjoy what we showed for the 40% demo of our game. Contact us if you have any questions. Thank you.